Okay, so continuing on, back in the energy settings, analyze tab, energy settings button. So now that I showed you how to put in spaces, we can continue on with setting up the rest of the settings. So like rooms, you can do spaces using either the building construction or the actual properties of all the elements that you have in your building. So for those of you that you want to set up your spaces, so you're kind of ahead of the game, but you kind of have generic walls and like a generic roof, and you don't have properties to them, or just maybe the first time you want to run it, you want to do it this way that I'm going to show right now, just to kind of see different types of elements, construction of different walls and roofs, and play around with them to get a basic idea of what's better. You can do it this way, where for build an envelope, you leave it set to function parameter, and then for build and construction, this is where so this is basically how that space, similar to the space type. But see, now the building one is what it's used. So this is the main kind of categories for the building that you can set up the different construction types here to get a quick estimate, of energy for your energy analysis. So you can set those up, and then again, if you set them up for certain spaces, those would override these parameters that you set up here for just that space. So you can do it either way, and then I'll go back a step to this one. So building servers, you can pick. This is basically what type of system that you're going to have for your HVAC, heating and ventilating. I'm just going to leave it as a VAV single duct for now. Building infiltration class is kind of how tight your building is and how much air will actually penetrate through like the walls and the roof and stuff like that. So you can try different ones with that. I'm going to set it to medium for now. For your report type, there's 3 different types of reports: simple, standard, and detailed. I always set it to detailed because I've yet to find a difference between the 3. Could be just me, but that's how it is. And then for the energy model, you set it to build-in elements. Even though you're using the function parameters, you still set it to build-in elements. And then for the silver space tolerance, analytical space resolution, and analytical surface resolution. Again, I just leave these as the defaults. You can hit the F1 key, get to the about online help topics, and you can read up on the definitions of those. If you want to change them, you can. In this one, different than if this was set to rooms, you don't have to worry about conceptual constructions here. And then here you can set the overall building operating schedule. Obviously, by spaces, you can set them for each space differently. But here you can do it for the building in general. And then you can set up, the building in general, the HVAC system for here. And then, again, for the building in general, you can set how much outdoor air per person is needed. But again, this can be overridden, for each space. So you can set it here in general, but for each space, it'll use whatever was set for the space instead of that. And then you would click OK. And then I'm going to run an energy analysis for that. So what you do is you hit the energy analysis button here, create the energy analysis, you hit that, and then you just click OK, and it'll bring you to this window to name it. So I'm going to say function parameter here, because I'm going to do one for the actual building elements. So I'll name that one building elements, and then I'm just going to take that off, and I'm going to hit continue, and it sends it to the green building studio in the cloud, which actually runs the report for you. And I'm going to go back to settings, and now I'm going to set this up for. So I'm going to leave it for spaces, and I'm going to switch this to identify exterior elements. So what it's going to do is, if you have, so I have this set up for exterior elements. So it's going to look at each element and its properties and its structure, and it's going to use those properties to run the energy analysis. So it won't. You don't have to set it. If you do it this way, and if you have all this set up by, actually drawing in specific wall types or setting up specific wall types yourself instead of using a generic wall, it'll run it this way. So you don't have to worry about setting up the building construction here. The rest of the stuff stays the same. Obviously, you want to use building elements here, and then everything else is similar. And then you hit OK. And then again, it's still using spaces. So you hit OK. And then I can click on Run Simulation again. So now that I updated the settings, it's asking if I want to update the analytical model. Obviously, if you don't update it, it's going to just use the same model that you had previously. So you want to update. You want to make sure that you hit Update. And then it's going to give you the same windows. And I'm going to change this to Identify. There's building elements. That's exactly. I'm going to change that. And then, just to give you a note, when your analysis is done, this little pop-up comes up, and you can click here. You can click on it to see it, or there's a Results tab right there that you click on. That I'll show you in a second. So you can hit Continue, and it'll send it to the cloud. So now, once your energy analysis is done, you can, as I mentioned, you can click on that pop-up that shows up, or you can just click on the Reports tab, and this will show up. Okay, so that gave me an error for why that didn't work. I'll look at that in a second. That was when I was. This one actually, just ignore that one. This one was earlier. I was doing tests earlier to make sure that I remembered how to do all this stuff. And this one, I actually forgot to take the site off, and it was taking forever to run through, and that's why it failed. Because I left the site buildings on, and it was taking too long to identify everything. So this is the one that I ran for the function parameter. With spaces that I just ran previously, the first one that I put through. So you get to start to see the report and everything that comes in the report. It's pretty similar to the report that's run with conceptual masses. Obviously, it's especially with function parameters, since you can kind of set up massing for the whole thing instead of actually having elements to it. It kind of, similar report that you can look through and kind of get a quick outlook of how your building will perform. Obviously, when you run a report using identify building elements, it's going to take a little bit longer. It's done now anyway, just because it has to identify all the elements in your building. Obviously, my building, it's very minimal, not much to it. Your stuff, you guys will have a lot more stuff to your building, particularly at the end of the semester, once everything's modeled. So I can switch to that one, and I can start to see, different types of what's going on with that as well. Or, I can always, if you're playing around with different, so once you see that, you can always go to, you can go back to the energy settings, and then, you can either change the elements themselves in here, or if you did it, if you're doing it by identify exterior elements, and you can go in and change the properties of the actual wall, or if you were doing it by function parameter to kind of get a sense of what type of constructions you're going to use everywhere, and you can go back into this and you can set different, you can change some elements, you can rerun the simulation, and then back in this you can hit compare. If you select both, you can hit compare, and now it'll put the reports that you've run side by side, and you can start to compare the different types. of construction materials that you've used, and the result, what gives a better result, or what helps one. So for instance, if I have this set up as function parameter, I can come in here, I can run a report using this type of roof, then I can change the roof and run a different report and see what that gives me. Obviously, if you were doing it using identify exterior elements, you'd have to go into the actual, say for this roof, I'd have to go into the roof and then change, if I wanted to bump this up to a 6-inch installation, change that to 6, and then, see what that would do, for my building and how that would change it. So obviously, just to sum up, using the function parameter option with spaces would be the better option at first, if you wanted to do something for Monday, just to kind of see what different types of construction can do for your building and start to get a sense of how you want to build your walls and how they're going to, the actual construction of the wall and the roof and stuff like that's going to be. And then, for later on, as you want to get more detailed, you can actually identify the elements that we build and do it that way. So I'm going to close out of this. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to leave that because I'm going to want to actually set up the spaces. So what I want to show you is the last video part of this tutorial is going to show you the heating and cooling loads. But what I want to show you is this is the project that I did for this class. So this is kind of give you an idea of where you guys are going. So this is the plumbing model. This is a mechanical model that opens. This is the mechanical of the building and the mechanical running through. But what I want to show here, first thing I want to show is the space schedule. So this is a schedule that you can set up in Revit for all the different spaces. So once you tag every single space in your building, you can set up a schedule where you can show different properties of the building, of those spaces, I should say. So you can show its name, the type of space that you assign to it, its area, the height of the space. Obviously by pulling that, I showed you how to change the height of it if it's room bound or if you have to pull it all the way up to the roof. The area per persons that you set up, in the type of space. Obviously it'll take this number divided, so it'll take the area divided by this number, and that's how many people you get. Its condition type, and obviously all this stuff is, and then what zone it's attached to, and the zone is what I will get into when I show you how to actually do the heat and cooling calculations. So this is, and then required outside air. So these are all columns that you can set up when you actually create the schedule, and I'll bring it in. And then the last thing I want to show is the actual loads report itself, and you'll see this, how you actually do this when I show you how to do the report. But when you actually open the report, if it opens, it's going slow, so just give it a couple of seconds. Okay, the loads report that I had is actually not opening, and I think that's because this was done in 2015, and I upgraded to 2016. I updated the model to 2016 when I opened it, and then I saved it, so I think I lost the report. Obviously, I could rerun it again, but I won't do that. I'll just show you guys what the report looks like in the part 4 of this tutorial.